Welcome back to the Smugsy Show. I'm Smugsy, your host. Almost every Wednesday we meet here to talk about important things and important people. This week, what I know about Kirk Minihane, why the Dalai Lama is a pig, and a special poem for middle-of-the-road trans people like you. So, Kirk Minihane, I have been busy in the battle at Camp Betty, and I must just say we had a stunning victory this week. You know, in the fight for refugee housing. Surprise nighttime sneak attack. Completely stunned the enemy. Complete success. The shot that was heard around the world, so to speak. So, game-changing event in the battle for refugee housing at Camp Betty. But needless to say, I was glad when I checked in with the Kirk Minihane show that there was an 8-minute show I could catch, and therefore feed all of you who are fans of that show some Kirk Minihane Bait. And here it is. I saw the 8-minute show when Kirk had an absolute temper tantrum over the retweet by Jerry of the transphobic swimmer. I mean, and the sobbing, about Kate and Harry. It was moving. It's really what sort of keeps the women in the audience along for the ride, is that vulnerable side of Kirk. It's his, I would say, his yin, mama bear. Very protective. Obviously, Kate's going through a difficult time, and he's channeling her feelings. And that's what, good parents do, and that's why good parents can be fans of the Kirk Minihane show. But what I saw also was something else, and I'm sure it was fairly obvious to anyone who's had either a toddler or a puppy, and that is that Kirk needs a nap. And you could just see it. I mean, the way lashing out at Jerry. I mean, the Jerry. It's It's obvious. He was melting down over a retweet by a swimmer, and once he had his nap, I could see already that he's back. So that's good. I mean, that is really, really good. And speaking of people who bounce back, I don't know if the Dalai Lama is going to be able to bounce back from the latest news. You know who the Dalai Lama is, right? The leader of the Tibetan movement, essentially in exile in India. He's supposedly enlightened. He's the carrier of, the chi. He's the man, and apparently he's also kind of a pig. I mean, the Wall Street Journal reports the Dalai Lama apologized on Monday for an encounter during a public talk with a boy who he kissed and told to, quote, suck my tongue. I mean, it's right here. The boy stood in the audience, asked if he could, give him a hug. The boy wanted to hug the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama agreed, telling him to kiss him on the cheek. And then I'm reading here from the Wall Street Journal article. He then told the boy to kiss him on the lips, pulling him close to do so. He then said, quote, and suck my tongue. The Dalai Lama stuck his tongue out at the boy, but only their foreheads appear to meet. So I don't know if I can ever get that out of my mind when I now see the Dalai Lama. I mean, hopefully I can. Hopefully those chattering monkeys that keep chattering about him wanting a young boy to suck his tongue, hopefully I can calm that chattering monkey right down. But I think that's going to be a struggle for me. And I'm sorry if I just let that into your mind. But faux pas, I mean, they happen to the best of us. And they happen to the worst of us. And they happen to trans people. Trans people are people too. And I think where we're coming now in a society, sort of at a reckoning, that there's middle of the road. There's a middle of the trans road. There's a big push right after the gay rights decision by the Supreme Court that affirmed gay marriage to be legal, a constitutional right, which I am fully in support of and totally embrace. Welcome all my brothers and sisters who are now married into the club. But soon as that was over, people who had been working on the campaign, I think, needed to pivot and find another job, so they dove head and heels into the trans movement, and they went a little overboard, and then there was backlash. And now people are looking for that middle of the road. That's fine with me, and I fully agree that there are extremes. Like there is extreme trans sort of theology of some, that if there's just a hint that a young person might be struggling with his or her identity, they need to be brought into a room and given a lecture on how you don't have to worry because it could be that you're trans, and, you know, here's a piece of equipment, or here's some drugs, or here's a surgery you can do. That's extreme. And especially if that's taking place without parents, nobody wants that. There's also extremes in sports, right? I mean, if sports, which is a huge industry and widely participated in by billions of people, if the rules are that the sports teams are segregated by sex, and sex is a biological test, then I don't think you just get a pass. I mean, you don't just get a pass. We have to work that out. There's a middle of the road. That middle of the road is where Kirk Minihane wants to be. And that middle of the road is, I think, where a lot of people want to be. And I'm glad now that we're having a conversation about that middle of the road. That you can be trans without being, extreme. You can be trans without surgery. You can be trans without drugs. You can be trans without calling yourself trans. And this is my point. I think that the problem in society here is that slicing and dicing of people, trying to fit everyone into a compartmentalized box. I don't like it. I don't like having to choose my race on these forms, and I'm white. What makes me white? My grandparents were immigrants from Italy. My other parents were European, but the bottom line is that by now we all know, right, since the human genome, that there's no difference in DNA between people of alleged different races. We all have the same DNA, the basic genetic material. There's nothing that sets us apart biologically. When it comes to gender, there's the chromosomes. But everybody wants to slice and dice. They want to slice up by race, even though there's no really genetic or biological component to slicing and dicing by race. And this gender thing, they want to be so fluid and have a fit if people want to slice and dice for purposes of sports. We've got to work that out. I think we will work it out. Maybe we'll work it out here on this show. Well, until next time, this is Smugsy signing off. Take care.